I don't know if I'm back up. Pretty sure I'm back up. I had to try a few different versions of OBS before I got it. So this is version 27 something something something. I know what it is, but I'm not gonna state it. Just in case someone's trying to like dig into the code and do some fuckery. Give me a few minutes. But I think the problem is, and I hate to state it, but we need to do this at home. It's urban renewal. And we don't want to do it because it's not cost effective to build factories in the United States because we want to get the most and get the cheap labor and basically slave labor from non-industrialized countries or whatever. But that's not the best thing for us because we see what happens when an enemy state has a lot of our production capability, and we needed to keep that at home. But it's in our best interest in a national security to have that industry in New York or in LA or in any of our cities or in West Virginia, you know, we have to pay a decent wage and have those factories there. That's what we should be doing. But to make a strong partner in Mexico, the same thing. We had to have how do we do urban renewal? How do we invigorate parts of our society, parts of our country so they don't have they don't live in poverty. They have opportunities they could work. And what we found out is you got a part of the city that is self-sustainable, has all the industries or whatever, the grocery stores, has coffee shops, it has all those other things, that make it a decent place. And you gradually walk that into the blight, into where it isn't, you know? So we know how to do this, but we can't. And for some odd reason, we have the inability, maybe because it's white people, to say this is what we need to do cartels. They have no industry, nothing there that could support the economy, right? So they emerge out of this um, depravity of nothing there that could support themselves to get money, and you need to walk industry into those communities where they have their strongholds. It's the only thing that you can do. That's why I said you need to have American people who have the balls to open up factories there. You have to walk that industry. You gotta have those Starbucks. You gotta have this. You gotta have that. You know what I'm talking about? All up and around where those um those cartels are situated at. So they have somewhere to go to make money. So that draw into that criminal lifestyle is just not there. It's something we know how to resolve. We just can't apply it externally. And we only use one tool under our tool belt, and we think that's enough, and it just isn't. We think we could outthink it, outsmart it because we're Americans and we could manipulate or whatever, but it's not the case. We have to use tried and true measures that we know how to do in an all encompassing way, I'm talking about, and apply it. And you have to constantly engage with these people, not just try and manipulate. You got to constantly engage and make that so that is not, going to affect America. And not just be like, oh yeah, this one thing over here, and that's all we got to do. And that's how we fought war. So we just got to do this. We just got to put just enough people. We'll just put 100,000 people in Afghanistan. No man, we know how to fight wars. We look at World War II. How many people were sitting on Germany? Millions of people were sitting on Germany. Millions of Allied troops. And they were bombed to hell where they never wanted war again. Completely desolated. That's how you win war. Unconditional strength. This other shit, that's just military engagement. You know what I'm talking about? Low level conflict. And people push through that and be like, oh, yeah, we could damage hurt America if we just do this, this, and this. And if we're not going to engage in war, then we should just back off and be like, all right, you do your thing. Just don't attack us. And you fuck with us, we'll kill the most violent people of you and be done with it. And we'll just keep doing that. You know what I'm saying? That's something different. That's special forces. We just have them people sitting there waiting to get shot, thinking we're manipulating, controlling, or whatever. Either we go to war or we don't. Don't think that we could manipulate and deceive and whatever. They're people like us, you know what I'm talking about? They're gonna find ways to come at us. And you don't want to create an environment where that happens. You just don't. You don't create an environment where people want to come, you provoke people and come at you. You go after the people everybody agrees like those are fucked up people. We gotta go after them. But beyond that, by and large, what I'm saying? It's just it was just not I don't I don't know. Somewhere after World War II, we got in this mentality. We won a great victory that we didn't have to do too much to win a war. We could just sort of fight a war with like a hand behind our back, not even a fist, and just poke at people. No, I think that's what happened. We fought a just war, and then for some odd reason we didn't go. We think we got arrogant, and that's all right. We learned, we grow, we get stronger. And we were over on complicated. It's this and that about every little thing. We are smart, but it only goes up to a certain level. It's just like, can we take out masses of people with precision? But there is a threshold to that. I'm talking about? It's not reality to a certain extent. I'm talking about? There will be a tipping point. And we don't even want to reach that tipping point. We want to make sure our precision can take out mass and stay well within it. You know what I'm talking about? We don't want to. It's a deadly game. We don't want to fuck with. Stay well within. You know, and that means we got to get a lot of material out there, a lot of war material out there. So that's what I'm getting at. This the whole thing I'm getting at is that we build enough war material because it's only going to last a very complex piece of machinery is only going to last a very short time on battlefield, and we have to realize that, not just not be happy with it, but just realize and we have to keep pumping it out. Human life is dying at a rate of one a minute about one every 2 minutes, one to every 2 minutes in Ukraine. And a brilliant human being that took millions of years to evolve, and our brain capacity is just being snuffed out like that. How long did it take to create that human being? At least 18 years. 18 years on this planet. At least that, if not more. 20, 30, 40 dead every 2 minutes. Decades to make that gone. And we're going to have a complex piece of machinery. It's going to take weeks to make, and it's going to be gone. You have to understand this. And so we have to make it, we have to build up our capacity. That's what's going to preserve us. So the only way we can get from countries that are not, we can only deal with democracies that we know are stable. That's where we have our factories are high, manufactured good, our complex IP products that we produce has to be within America, within other stable democracies. And the only thing we get from non-stable is like raw materials. And it's sort of like stuff that takes, almost like a ratio of work hours to getting that that product. How can I say this? In simplistic terms, let's say if it's like iron or you know lumber, that type of thing. That doesn't take a lot of complexity to it. And there's a reason for that. I don't want to get into it, and I haven't really formulated, or really articulated um, why is that the case. Because it's sort of like if we're in that situation, we could stockpile certain things, so it'd be all right. I mean, and we have enough oil, but and the fact of the matter is everything's turning into electric vehicles anyways, because the power of electric vehicles is now being understood. So we'll soon have electric tanks and so on and so forth. So it's the battery capacity, and then we'll finally realize the whole tank itself will be a battery. Now we're getting into batteries that don't go up in flames that are. But anyways, and that's getting on thing. But that's the distant future or whatever. But materials. But we have enough like raw materials in Canada and in the Americas. We're all right. But I think with fusion power, we'll be able to really become a country or a civilization that could reach the next level because we'll have enough energy that we could preserve the environment. We could do these exotic things, such as, getting out raw materials under life, under a forest, and not disturbing it, because we'll have enough energy to do so, and it'd be cost effective to do so. Anyways, that's in the future. So, dealing with stable democracies, yeah, so that's what we need to get to. We need to start slowly lighting up the factories in Europe and in the United States and in Australia. Look at Australia; they have a lot of raw materials, and we got to convince the Aborigines there that we could. It's time to bring in water into the interior, you know, so we could build a larger population there and build life, and there'd be beginnings of terraforming. Like, how do we terraform the right way in consensus with everybody there? It's okay to change the environment. It's okay to change the environment when it's beneficial to the ecosystem of the world, and you have more plant life, more river systems. Because the fact of the matter is, we know how much stuff we need. We just are hesitantly not don't want to acknowledge it, and we think it's based on politics, and we have these numbers. We think it's what Zelensky wants, and it is. That's what he thinks he needs to win a war, but we all don't know. But it's a really simple answer. It's more than what they have. So if they have this, we need more. So if they're losing a tank, how many tanks they lose? About more than one tank a day. They're losing less than two tanks a day. Like, so if we give them two tanks a day, we give them 400 tank, 500 tanks upstart, and then we're always able to give them at least two tanks a day combined from all of us, United States, Canada, UK, Germany, at least two tanks a day. We'll be all right for now. If you look at the numbers now, we know that. And then we could adjust those. And then, but the thing is, once we know those numbers, we get complacent and we won't adjust it. And that's the fucked up thing about all of us. We are lazy. We look at something that makes sense, logical sense at that given time. And if you look at all these political theorems, they're brilliant in how they make it. They're so intricate, how to make America better. But it's only for that political session within that session of Congress. It cannot be applied 10 years later. You could take a foundation of it. You can't apply the next section of Congress. And you have these brilliant minds going through it, how to work it, how to deal with this section of loyalty within the Congress and that section of loyalty, and work it how to make a better um litigious argument on whatever policy. But it's only effective for that snippet of time because things change in the next second, the next minute, the next hour, whatever. But it's this constant adaptation, not just adaptation, but that's feel because everyone wants a perception. It's this constant, yeah, dealing with the changing environment and making decisions on that. Because if you look at media and everything else like this, even the generals and every else, we're repeating what the last person stated for a duration that's very concerning to me, because the guy constantly adapting. Like, minute by minute. Because I remember being in Jersey. I would hear shit repeated, and I was like, well, that was earlier in the day. This is now. I was like, but you said this. I was like, I changed my mind. Now I know what people are moving towards over here. I'm going to do this shit. I value, I value me. You know what I mean? Shit. And we're too concerned about having that perceptions now. And so that's why I'm Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Finland, and Poland. They need to have their regional commanders there. They need to have skin in the game. They need because we have to listen to them. And the soldiers that are there in front of Lithuania be like, look, you need to commit everything as these Lithuanians do. You need to commit everything as these Estonians are going to do. Because what's going to happen if they get attacked, they're going to be like the Ukrainians. They're going to have their militias. They're going to have their other people that come to the fight, And we have to very quickly integrate them and accept them, you know, at the initial attack. You know, the attack comes in, you absorb that attack. And then all those militias and because you know you could only it takes a while to mobilize for Estonia and the Baltic states to fully um go from to a total war stance. It takes time. And ideally, my opinion, just my opinion, and I'm wrong about, and I don't want to state because it'll cost a lot of lives. I feel that the best thing to do, and it's going to cost, and you know it's going to be very costly, and it's going to eat up a lot of, like a lot of the current manpower, have a lot of casualties. Is the counterattack as soon as all the militia we have within about a few weeks, that initial counterattack, that near counterattack beyond the Baltic states for about, hopefully as far as you could get and supply it, 250 miles outside of a lot of the big artillery. Then you got to, and some breathing room for the Baltic states to turn over to total war. So you might have casualties up into the 50%, 80%, you know, I'm talking about. And then you just dig in. And it's worth it, in my opinion. And the Estonians and Latvians and Lithuanians realize that sustaining casualties up to 50, 80% of that initially what's there to get that far, to give them just so they could survive and they could put out more people. So we don't think like that. We think, okay, well, 10%, 20%, you know, and because if they just start there and they slowly push out, they'll be annihilated, completely just destroyed. They'll be um that genocide. So you take 80% up front and push them out for the chance to mobilize, or you have this slow attrition of genocide. And they're going to make the decision, I'm telling you right now, to push out and suffer all those casualties up front and push out 250 miles. So they have breathing room to fully train the population to defend themselves to the last. So, and then you could have more, I wouldn't say exotic, but then, you know, Finland, Sweden, and Norway capture all those bases up there, and maybe they could do swing down around St. Petersburg and do a flanking attack, a massive raid, and then pull back or whatever would be ideal too. You know, they could hold that isthmus, but just push down in the initial stage of the war and disrupt and blunt the onslaughts coming into the Baltic states. You know, now buy us some time. You know, push down towards Moscow, whatever, and then pull back. You know, maybe hold it for a little bit and pull back, or even make another wide sweeping attack and pull back or whatever. You just don't want to hold an enemy territory. You just don't know what's going to come at you, but you destroy and do everything you can. Destroy every bridge coming into the Baltic states you can, and then you pull back. Deep sorties or whatever, however we could get at them. Constantly, just landing bulldozers, bulldozing every fucking road coming into the Baltic states in the first few months, past what we have. Make them go the last 100 miles into a morass of mud and non-industrial thing. So every start at every major road, and they get every secondary road. And we get every bridge, get every railroad, or whatever. So, and mash up cows because they're gonna die. It's a fucking bulldozer, you know. But how long does it take to build a road? Exponentially longer than it is to bulldozer. The bulldozer, right? And I'll buy you enough time to fully mobilize. So that's my opinion. But it goes down to production. We're buying time for production. A very complex piece of machinery that will only last a very short time in combat. We got to build, 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 and we got to build deep and protect it. Like, honestly, we should have an influx of hardcore construction workers and miners digging earthworks, knowing that in an order amount of time of building is only going to stop them X amount of minutes. But we have to do that because it preserves our life. Something that took 18 years to come to the front, like we snuffed out every 2 minutes. So if we know every 2 minutes someone dies, would it make sense to have all these massive equipment, building equipment, and constructors workers that are delaying them for a few minutes because those few minutes saves lives? Yes, it took 100 man-hours to build all this, and it only stopped them for about 10 minutes. But in those 10 minutes, two people were able to give the fight on longer. And we have to realize that. We have to come to terms with that. And that's how you force multiply what's out in Ukraine. It's our production capability, our trusted partners' production capability in stable democracies that are building the environment of civility that when I give out goodness, by and large, you give out that goodness back to us. Because it's evil, it's easy to get and sink into your neocortex and be violent, whatever, and be evil. It's not tough to kill. It's tough to preserve those 18 years that it took to make that life because it took so much resources to bring that life to where it is at 18 years. And it took nothing to destroy it. Anyway, I'll be back in the game. I said my piece. I'm good.